I was born with renal fusion, and I actually developed a childhood condition by the name of polyarthralgia, which basically is like arthritis that affects many joints throughout your body. And you may have stiffness, you may deal with joint pain. Sometimes you'll feel like lightning is striking you. For me, it was my feet, my hands. As a child, I remember just kind of having my fingers crisscross each other, similar to rheumatoid. But for a long time, we didn't know what was wrong. With the renal fusion, basically my kidneys were fused together at birth, and I suffered with like a lot of urinary tract infections, a lot of abdominal swelling and bloating, things of that nature as a child. And later on, at about age 15, 16, I started having these headaches, and the headaches would last very, very long. I mean, days and sometimes months at a time. And what would happen is my speech would slur. And then from the time that my speech would slur, I would start to get issues with my vision. I would have to turn off the lights. I could not see. And the pain would get so intense that eventually I would end up in an emergency room. I went through just this god awful phase in my life where I was running track, I was playing basketball, I was doing all these things, but my conditions had started to limit me. And because I was so young, a lot of times doctors were just kind of like, oh, well, let's just give it some time. You're still so young. You're going to be okay. Not realizing that I had an underlying autoimmune disease that was basically eating away at some of my tissues. I went through a phase of them thinking that it was lupus. I went through a phase of them saying it was something else. And long story short is the polyarthralgia that stemmed from my childhood, it was getting worse. But I also was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and later on diagnosed with endometriosis. And for those who don't really know much about it, you basically have your internal female parts attaching to one another and developing adhesions, and you have scar tissue, and you end up with a lot of pain as a result. I dealt with a lot of female personal issues, a lot of cramping, a lot of extra menstrual cycles that I did not need to have, but they were just coming irregularly. On top of that, I was still dealing with the issues that took place, again, as I said, as a child. Fast forward, how I truly became disabled and unable to work. I worked several years in the car industry. I actually have a bachelor's degree in business management and accounting. And I worked for several years, and there were days where, typing would be a challenge. I would type my customers' information and I would just sit and just want to cry because my fingers were hurting so bad. Long story short, I battled that. I pushed through it. In 2014, I gave birth to twins, and one of my twins passed away. And with the surviving twin, I was given an epidural because we thought we were going to have to do an emergency C-section. I was in so much pain. They wanted to calm down everything to make sure that I was not going to hemorrhage or, pass out from the pain. So they administered an epidural. It ended up being a botched procedure. The needle went in too far. It punctured my dura mater. And I've since then been dealing with chronic pain. I've suffered with arachnoiditis. All of my nerves are clumped together like spaghetti noodles in my lower back. And the pain is dull, ache, stinging, burning. It hurts to put a sheet across my leg. Sometimes I cry because it just hurts so bad if I'm trying to cook or if I'm trying to walk or I'm trying to drive. A lot of things that I used to be able to do, I can't really do anymore. And I'm 28 years old. So to be so young and to have to deal with these things is difficult. I would love to bring awareness, and I support this because I feel that so many people underestimate each other because of age, race, or orientation, that I feel like awareness needs to be brought on. Thank you.